Hi everybody. Today we are going to take a look at using Bezier curves in a little bit of a different way. We are going to apply an image as a background image. We'll use a Bezier curve to trace it, and then we're going to spin that curve to create the geometry in a circular profile looking down on it. We're going to use it for a vase today. Obviously it would work for any kind of geometry of that particular type. A lamp would be another example. So we're going to hop on over into Firefox here, where I've got a Google Images search for vase up, and I want to talk a little bit about what kind of image we want to find. If you look at this one here, it's a nice simple curve. This would be really nice. The challenge is that we are looking down on that image a little bit. We can tell that because we can see inside the vase. The same thing going on here and here. A lot of those camera angles are going to not be straight on. They're going to be from above or below a little bit. We want to watch out for that because in those cases we have to compensate for what that profile really looks like. This one is super straight on. There is nothing extra being seen. This one's pretty good. This one is pretty good but not perfect, which is part of why I'm going to choose it, so that we can deal with a couple of the potential problems that come with it being a little bit off. So I'm going to right click on that and save that image as. I'll drop it into my downloads. I'm going to call it vase demonstration. And there it is. So then I hop on over into Blender. Here I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that cube, X and enter. So the first thing I want to do is go to the angle that I want by clicking on the Y. So I'm working on the XZ plane. Red is X, blue is Z. And I'm going to add an image that's a background image. And if I drop down into my downloads, there's vase demonstration. I load that image, and there it is. Where I move it to is going to be, I want it in the center on the Z-axis there. And I'm going to put the bottom right here on the X-axis so that I can see and be sure that I'm getting a straight line later on. So if I kind of move that up there, and zoom in a little bit, that looks pretty good. If I look at kind of this spot, I think that's pretty decent. It'll do. Now, you'll see that this has created an empty object here that has an image icon. I can click the eyeball to turn it on or off. I can also come down in here to the image tab here, and I can tell it to use alpha so that I can change the opacity of the thing. And that'll be good. I could also choose which side to view it from, and so on. If I rotate out, I don't see it anymore. I've got to be looking at it from that plane. That's really valuable because if you're looking at it from that plane, then you're less likely to have parts of the curve go along that third axis. I want it to be just a two-dimensional curve that follows the edge of this. And part of what I want down here is a flat bottom, so that if I move it into some kind of a simulation environment, it's going to go ahead and sit up just fine. It's not going to wobble. I don't want a wobbler. So I'm going to add a curve. I want a Bezier curve. It's there, so I'm going to press G to move it, and I'm going to put it over here somewhere. And notice that I can't tell anything about the profile of this curve. If I rotate the orbit around it, I'll see why. You'll see that it is actually moving this way and not this way. So I want to rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis so that it stands upright. Rotate x-axis 90 degrees. And now we can see what that curve is made of, and that's going to make it a lot easier to work with. Okay, I'm ready to go into edit mode. Tab. So I want to make sure that I've got a lip to this vase and that it's hollow on the inside. So I want this first point, anchor point, to be kind of over here, the next one to be just there, so I get some geometry there. Notice that for each anchor point I also have two handles. one here and one here, and those, if I move them around, determine the angle of the curve and how far it goes. So I can go so far that it does some very strange things. Press escape there. So I want to be fairly careful with those things. And what that also means is that as we're working around with it, making changes to one item, one anchor point and its handles might impact one's upstream a little bit. So we kind of have to go through it and then kind of back across it a couple times to make sure that it all comes out just right. So I'm going to move this one over to about there. And as I choose the next spots, I'm going to move that a little bit in. I'll make this a little bit bigger of a lip. And I'm going to move this on the x-axis in to shorten that up. Okay, so I'm looking for the ways that, move that just on the x-axis. I'm looking for the ways the curves change, right? Because I can handle a certain amount of curve with a single point. So I've got one turn there and another turn there. And I might even be able to come all the way down to there. Helps if I push the right button when I get it to the right spot. It might be a little too much. Yeah, let's go to here instead. Trying to be more ambitious. And I'm not going to take all of your time perfecting this, because that takes a little extra time, but we'll get it about right. So then I go to this second anchor point, and I'm just going to extrude out and choose the next spot. This one's got a nice long curve that's really got one change, right? So it's sort of gradual here, and then it's a straighter line here. So I should be able to come all the way down to around here. Bring that up to there. Shorten this one up without messing up that side too much, hopefully. And that traces it pretty nicely. Move up. I might be able to get away with coming down a little bit further, maybe to this shoulder right here. There we go. That still seems to trace it reasonably well. Go back to the correct angle. Okay. So now I'm going to come down just to here, I think. Shorten this way up. Shorten this way up. Oh, hopefully without ruining the rest. Zoom in a bit. The reason why I want this to be here, because I want to be able to come down a little bit, and actually I'm going to move this maybe down a little more, because here is where I've got some artistic license to do. This looks like it's going backwards, and on a two-dimension scale that means that it's coming up. But I don't really want this curve here. I need it to be flat. So I'm going to come down a little bit further here, and I think about here is where I want it to be, because I want one point that is pretty much straight below that. And I'll adjust that a little bit. Got to shorten up this handle a lot. Let's get that one back to right. I'm going to move that. Oop, chose the wrong one. Sorry for floundering a little bit there. Once they get too close, it can be a little bit challenging. And then I'm going to move that one into there. Shorten that one way up. I want that pretty much, those handles to be pretty much straight. Oops, wrong handle. Escape will go back to before you changed things. So that matches a little bit. Notice that there's this where it comes down and then goes kind of straight down. That's kind of what I want to capture there. And I think maybe I've got it there. It's going to come there, and then I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to choose the x-axis so it just comes straight out to there. And this is a little bit of a weird piece, but I think that if we take it as for what it's worth, Let's see what that did to this. Notice how much that messed this up. That's where I need that to be, and that's there. This is a little bit of a weird mess, but I think it's working okay. Maybe capture that a little bit. I could maybe move this out a little bit and sharpen that. No. Stay on the x-axis. I want all these to be nice and straight. That creates my flat bottom. EX, we can go to there. There we go. I think maybe we'll go with that. So, double checking my work here. That traces that a little bit. See if we can soften that a little bit. It'd be tempting to throw in another piece here, but I'm not going to do that for the sake of time here. I think I'm going to go with it. Okay, so now what I need to do is convert that convert that curve into a mesh. So I tab back into object mode, and the curve is selected. We'll see that here it is that curve icon. And I'm going to go to the object menu and come down to convert to mesh from curve. Okay, so I tab into edit mode. I'm going to select all, and I'm going to use the spin tool here. And my angle right now is set at 0, so I'm going to change that to 360. I'm going to make the center I'm a little bit off on both the x and the y axis there. I don't really like that. But as soon as I change it to 0, things start working better. Okay, my y is not right, so I undo that, and I try it again. And I spin it, and I say my x has to be at 0, and I'm going to go 360 degrees. And we'll see that now I've got the lip here. On the bottom, I'm nice and tight. But notice how the angles are really, it's pretty blocky, right? So I can change that with the steps. So the more that I add, the more smooth that circle ends up being. If I multiply it by 10, I get super smooth. But that is a ton of geometry that nobody wants to try to render for a simple vase. So I'm going to go with 15, maybe I'll go up to 20. That's pretty good. I'm going to tab over into object mode, and we'll see that I have my vase. It's got a nice flat bottom there. It has the lip that I wanted. It is empty inside, and that is my vase, and it is ready to be colored up. And that is adding an image as a background image, applying a Bezier curve to the profile of it, converting it to a mesh, and then spinning it around to make it into an actual object. And that is it. Thanks, everybody.